My dad said he missed my birth because work called him in last minute. Then Mom found his old calendar. He'd scheduled a golf trip that day 3 months in advance and wrote, "She'll be fine without me." My mom handed me my dad's 1994 day planner yesterday and said page 67 without another word. The entry was right there in his handwriting, July 12th circled in red marker, Pebble Beach tea time 7 a.m. back Sunday. 3 months before that date he'd written in smaller letters along the margin, "She'll be fine without me." July 12, 1994 was the day I was born. My whole life he told everyone the hospital called him at work, and by the time he got there I was already born and Mom was sleeping. He'd pat my shoulder and say, "You came so fast, kiddo, your mom's a champ." At my wedding he made a toast about how he unfortunately missed the big entrance but made sure to catch every other important moment. My mom found the planner 2 days ago when she was cleaning out the garage. Dad's moving in with his girlfriend next month after the divorce finalizes. He told Mom to box up anything she wanted to throw out. She was going through his old office boxes and there it was in a manila folder marked 1994 tax docs. She called me immediately. I drove over and we sat at her kitchen table staring at it for 20 minutes before either of us said anything. "He chose golf," she finally said. "He chose 18 holes over meeting his daughter." The entry before July 12th said, "See due date mention will be out of town for work. C is my mom, her name is Catherine." I confronted him last night, showed up at the apartment he's renting near his girlfriend's place. He answered the door in a bathrobe looking annoyed. "What's this?" I held up my phone with a photo of the planner page. His face went white, then red, then he tried to grab my phone. "Where did you get that?" "Mom found it, you saved it in your tax folder. Did you think she'd never clean the garage?" He stepped back and his voice got quiet. "Your mother had a easy delivery. The doctor said first babies take forever. I thought I had time. You planned the trip 3 months early. You wrote that she'd be fine without you. I meant fine during labor. Women do it every day. You told everyone work called you in. You've been lying for 28 years. His girlfriend appeared behind him in the doorway. "What's going on?" "His daughter is upset about something that happened decades ago," he said without looking at me. "Ancient history." "Ancient history? You missed my birth for golf and lied about it my entire life." The girlfriend touched his shoulder. "Maybe you two should talk privately." "No," I said, "he can explain right here why Pebble Beach was more important than his daughter being born." "I made a mistake," he said. "I was young and stupid and scared. Your mom and I worked it out." "You worked it out by lying to me for almost 30 years. What do you want from me? You want me to apologize for something I can't change? I want you to admit what you did, admit you chose golf, admit you wrote that Mom would be fine without you like she was some inconvenience." He crossed his arms. "I'm not doing this. I'm sorry you're hurt but I can't go back in time. Did you even feel bad when you got home and I was already born? Did you regret it?" "Of course I regretted it, but I was there for everything else. Every recital, every soccer game, every graduation. Because Mom guilted you into it, because you were making up for missing the one day you couldn't fake." His girlfriend cleared her throat. "Maybe we should all calm down. This doesn't involve you," I told her. "Don't talk to her like that," my dad said. "You don't get to defend her. You barely defended Mom when she was in labor alone because you were teeing off at Pebble Beach." He pointed at the door. "You need to leave. Come back when you're ready to have a rational conversation." "Rational? You want rational? Fine. Don't contact me until you're ready to tell the truth, not your version where you were young and scared. The actual truth where you chose a golf trip over your daughter and then lied about it for 28 years. I left and blocked his number in my car. This morning he sent emails to my work address saying I'm overreacting and being cruel to punish him for a mistake he made before I could even remember. He said my mom is poisoning me against him because she's bitter about the divorce. My mom didn't poison anything. She just handed me his day planner and let me read his own words. My brother thinks I should forgive him because Dad's not perfect, but he tried. My aunt said I'm justified, but cutting him off won't change the past. His girlfriend sent me a Facebook message saying I'm breaking his heart and he's too proud to admit how much this is hurting him. I don't care if it hurts him. He missed my birth for golf and spent 28 years lying about it. But part of me wonders if I'm throwing away whatever relationship we have left over something that happened before I could even remember it. My dad showed up at my apartment at 6 a.m. yesterday, banging on the door hard enough that my neighbor came out in his bathrobe asking if I needed him to call someone. I opened the door and my dad pushed past me into the living room. His eyes were bloodshot and he smelled like he hadn't showered. He was wearing the same clothes from when I confronted him 4 days ago. You turned your mother against me, he said. His voice was shaking. She told my entire family. My sister won't return my calls. My mother said I disgust her. I didn't turn anyone against you. Mom showed people your day planner. Your own handwriting did that. She had no right to share that. That was between us, private. You wrote that she'd be fine without you when she was about to give birth to me. Nothing about that stays private. He sat down on my couch without asking, put his head in his hands. For a second I thought he was going to cry, but then he looked up at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Pure anger. Do you have any idea what you've done to my life? My girlfriend left me, said she can't be with someone who'd abandoned their wife during childbirth. My golf buddies found out because someone saw your mom's Facebook post and now I'm uninvited from the club tournament next month. Your brother won't speak to me. My brother told me I should forgive you. I called him after you blocked me, told him what really happened. He said some things I won't repeat and hung up on me. I felt something shift in my chest. My brother and my dad used to watch football together every Sunday. They had matching jerseys. What did you tell him? The truth, that your mother had an easy pregnancy and I thought I had time, that the tea time was impossible to reschedule because it was a charity tournament. It wasn't a charity tournament. Your planner said Pebble Beach with the guys, no charity anything. His jaw tightened. The details don't matter. What matters is you've destroyed my relationship with my son over a mistake I made 30 years ago. No, you destroyed it by lying for 30 years. I just showed people proof. He stood up fast enough that I stepped back. I want that planner. Your mother stole my property and I want it back. It was in a box you told her to throw away. I want it back now. I don't have it, Mom does. Then call her and tell her to give it back or I'll get a lawyer involved. I almost laughed. A lawyer? You're going to sue Mom for finding your day planner in your own garage. I'm serious, that's my personal property and she's using it to humiliate me. You humiliated yourself when you wrote those words. He moved toward the door but stopped with his hand on the knob, turned back to face me. I was there for you, he said quietly. Every birthday, every Christmas, your graduation, your wedding, I walked you down the aisle. Doesn't that count for anything? You were there because Mom made sure you were, because she covered for you when you missed my birth. She told everyone you were at work. She protected you. She didn't protect me, she punished me. Every single milestone she'd remind me I missed the first one. Every birthday party she'd mention how she drove herself to the hospital. I spent 28 years making up for one mistake. It wasn't one mistake, it was one choice followed by 28 years of lying. What do you want from me? You want me to grovel? You want me to say I'm the worst father who ever lived? I want you to admit you prioritized golf over meeting your daughter. No excuses, no justifications, just admit what you did. He stared at me for a long moment, then he said something I'll never forget. Fine, I chose golf. I chose it because your mother was driving me crazy with her nesting and her crying and her constant needs. I needed one weekend where I wasn't thinking about diapers and bottles and all the ways my life was about to change. I needed to breathe. So yes, I chose golf. And I'd probably choose it again because that tournament was the last time I felt like myself before becoming someone's father. The apartment went completely silent. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Get out, I said. You wanted the truth, that's the truth. Get out of my apartment. He left without another word. I locked the door behind him and sat on the floor with my back against it for 20 minutes trying to process what he'd said. I called my mom, told her everything. She was quiet for a long time and then she said something that broke me. I knew, she said, not about the planner, but I knew he resented being a father. I could see it in his face every time you cried as a baby, every time I asked him to help with feedings. I thought if I just covered for him enough, if I made it easy enough, he'd eventually want to be there, but he never did. He was just going through the motions. We cried together on the phone, 28 years of her protecting him, and he couldn't even pretend to be sorry. My brother called me an hour later, said Dad had called him drunk last night and confessed everything. The golf trip, the comment about needing to breathe, how he resented having a family so young. My brother told him not to contact him again until he got therapy and meant it. Dad sent me an email this morning, no apology, just, I hope you're happy, you've taken everything from me. I haven't responded, I don't know what I'd even say. Part of me feels vindicated that everyone finally knows the truth. But another part of me wishes I'd never seen that day planner. Wishes I could go back to believing my dad loved me enough to rush to the hospital and just got there too late. My aunt keeps texting me saying family is family and I need to forgive him before it's too late. But how do you forgive someone who explicitly said he'd make the same choice again? My dad's mother called me 3 days ago and asked if I could come to her house because she had something to show me. I almost didn't go. My grandmother has always been my dad's biggest defender. When my parents separated, she told my mom she was being dramatic and men need space to figure things out. But something in her voice sounded different, so I drove over after work. She was sitting at her kitchen table with a shoe box in front of her. She looked like she'd aged 10 years since I saw her at Christmas. Sit down, she said. I sat. She pushed the box toward me. I found these in your grandfather's office. He passed in 1997, but I kept everything exactly how he left it. I was going through his files last week because the accountant needed some old tax documents. Inside the box were letters, at least 30 of them, all addressed to my grandfather from my dad, all from 1993 and 1994. Read the one on top, my grandmother said. I pulled it out. The date was April 1994, 3 months before I was born. The letter was 2 pages long, my dad's handwriting. He told my grandfather that Mom was pregnant and he didn't know if he could do it, that he felt trapped. That he'd only proposed because Mom got pregnant and everyone expected it, that he'd been planning to break up with her before she told him about the baby. He wrote, I love her but I'm not ready to give up my life. I'm 26. I had plans. Now I'm going to be changing diapers and paying for daycare and I'll never get to do any of the things I wanted to do. My hand started shaking. Keep reading, my grandmother said. The next letter was from June 1994, a month before my birth. He wrote about the golf trip. Said he'd scheduled it months ago and wasn't going to cancel just because mom's due date was around then. Said first babies always come late and he'd be back before anything happened. Said my grandfather would understand because he'd done the same thing when my uncle was born. Did he? I asked. Did grandpa miss uncle's birth for something else? My grandmother's face went hard. Your grandfather was in the delivery room for all 3 of our children. Your father lied about that too. There were more letters, one from August 1994 where my dad wrote about how much he resented coming home from work to a crying baby, how mom expected him to help with night feedings when he had to be up early for work, how he'd started playing golf every Saturday just to get away from the house. One from December 1994 where he wrote, I look at her and I don't feel anything. Mom says I'll bond with her eventually, but it's been 5 months and she just feels like this obligation I didn't ask for. I couldn't read anymore. I put the letters back in the box. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because I called your father after you told me about the day planner. I asked him if it was true. He said you were overreacting and taking things out of context. He said he'd been a good father and you were trying to destroy him because you were angry about the divorce. She paused and took a breath that sounded painful. I believed him. I called you dramatic. I told your mother she'd raised a spoiled daughter who didn't appreciate what she had. Then I found these letters. Does Dad know you have them? He knows now. I called him yesterday and read him his own words, every single letter. It took me 40 minutes. What did he say? He said I was violating his privacy, that those letters were written when he was young and scared and didn't represent who he became. I told him he wrote those letters when he was 26 years old, not 16, old enough to know better, old enough to make a choice. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin felt paper thin. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I defended him when he didn't deserve it. And I'm sorry your grandfather never showed me these letters when he was alive because maybe I could have talked sense into your father before he wasted 30 years pretending. I started crying and couldn't stop. My grandmother came around the table and held me while I sobbed into her shoulder. She told me she'd already called my uncle and my aunt and told them about the letters. My uncle drove to Dad's apartment that same night and told him he was ashamed to be his brother. My aunt sent Dad a text that just said, "Don't contact me again." My grandmother also told me something I didn't know. After my grandfather died in 1997, my dad asked her for money, said he needed help with bills. She gave him $15,000 from my grandfather's life insurance, found out later he'd used it for a golf trip to Scotland with his buddies, told her it was a work conference. He's always been this way, she said, I just didn't want to see it. My mom came over to my grandmother's house when I called her. We sat together reading through all the letters, some of them were worse than others. One from 1995 where Dad wrote about wishing he could start over without the responsibility. One from 1996 where he wrote about meeting someone at work and wondering what his life would be like if he'd married her instead. Mom's hands were shaking when she finished reading. I knew he didn't want to be there, she said, but I didn't know he'd written it all down. I didn't know he'd told your grandfather he felt trapped. My grandmother made us tea and we sat in her kitchen until it got dark outside. None of us knew what to say. Dad has called my grandmother 16 times in the past 3 days. She's not answering. He sent her an email saying she's betraying him by siding with me. That family is supposed to be loyal no matter what. She forwarded me the email with no comment. My brother came over last night. He'd already heard about the letters from our uncle. He looked destroyed. I defended him, my brother said. When you first told me about the day planner, I told you everyone makes mistakes. I thought you were being harsh, but he never wanted us. He never wanted any of it. We didn't talk much after that, just sat on my couch watching a basketball game neither of us cared about. This morning my grandmother called and said she's writing Dad out of her will. She's leaving everything to me, my brother and our cousins. She said Dad doesn't deserve a penny of the money my grandfather worked for. I told her she didn't have to do that, but she cut me off. Yes, I do, she said, because your grandfather kept those letters for a reason. He knew what your father was, and I think he kept them so someday the truth would come out. Dad sent me an email an hour ago, said I've poisoned his whole family against him, said I'm cruel and vindictive and I won't be happy until I've destroyed every relationship he has, said when I have kids of my own I'll understand that parents are human and make mistakes. I deleted it without responding. But I keep thinking about what he wrote in those letters, that he felt nothing when he looked at me, that I was an obligation he didn't ask for. How do you get past knowing your father spent your entire childhood wishing you didn't exist? My dad showed up at my workplace yesterday during my lunch break. I work in a small accounting firm, 10 employees total. Everyone knows everyone's business. My boss has met my dad twice at company events and always said nice things about him. I was eating a sandwich at my desk when the receptionist called back and said my father was in the lobby asking to see me. I told her to tell him I was busy. She called back 2 minutes later and said he was refusing to leave. I went out to the lobby and he was standing by the front desk with his arms crossed. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled and he had a coffee stain on his collar. We need to talk, he said. Not here, not now. Yes here, yes now, you won't answer my calls, you blocked my number, your mother won't talk to me, my own mother won't talk to me, you've left me no choice. The receptionist was staring. 2 of my coworkers had stopped in the hallway to watch. You need to leave, I said quietly. I'm not leaving until you hear me out. I'm not the monster you're making me out to be. I made mistakes, but I was there. I provided for you. I paid for your college. I walked you down the aisle at your wedding. You walked me down the aisle because mom told you if you didn't show up, she'd tell everyone why you missed my birth. She told me that last week. You didn't do it because you wanted to. You did it because she threatened you. His face went red. That's not true. Your mother is lying to turn you against me. Mom doesn't need to lie. Your own letters did that. Your own day planner did that. Those letters were private. Your grandfather had no right to keep them. My mother had no right to show them to you. My boss came out of her office. Is everything okay out here? Everything's fine, my dad said before I could answer. Just a family discussion. This is a workplace, my boss said. Her voice was polite but firm. If you need to have a family discussion, please do it somewhere else. I'll leave when my daughter agrees to talk to me like an adult instead of hiding behind her mother and her grandmother. I'm not hiding, I'm at work. You showed up uninvited. Because you've blocked every other way I have to reach you. What am I supposed to do? You've taken my whole family from me. My mother is cutting me out of her will. My brother won't speak to me. My son told me I'm dead to him. All because of some letters I wrote 30 years ago when I was scared. You wrote those letters when I was a baby. You wrote that you felt nothing when you looked at me. My boss stepped between us. I'm going to need you to leave now. If you don't leave, I'll call security. Security, I'm her father. I have a right to speak to my daughter. Not on company property, you don't. He looked at me with this expression of pure desperation. Please, just give me 5 minutes, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I read your words. I know how you felt. I was 26 years old and terrified. Yes, I wrote things I shouldn't have. Yes, I made bad choices. But I stayed. I didn't run. I could have left, but I stayed and I tried. You stayed because it would have looked bad if you left. You stayed because mom's family would have judged you. You didn't stay because you wanted us. He grabbed my arm, not hard but firm enough that my boss immediately picked up the phone. I'm calling the police, she said. He let go of my arm and stepped back. I'm leaving, but this isn't over. You can't just erase me from your life because I wasn't perfect. He walked out. The lobby went completely silent. I could feel everyone staring at me. My boss pulled me into her office and closed the door, asked if I was okay, asked if I needed to go home early. I told her I was fine and went back to my desk, but I couldn't focus on anything for the rest of the day. My coworker came by at 3 p.m. and asked if that was really my dad. Said she'd always thought I had such a nice family based on how I talked about them. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. When I got home, there was a letter taped to my apartment door from my dad, 4 pages front and back, handwritten. He wrote that he's sorry for everything, sorry for missing my birth, sorry for the letters, sorry for not being the father I deserved, but then the tone shifted and he wrote that I'm being unreasonable. That everyone makes mistakes when they're young, that he sacrificed his dreams to raise me and I'm throwing it in his face, that I'm cruel and unforgiving and someday I'll regret destroying our relationship over things that happened before I could remember them. The last paragraph said, you want me to admit I wasn't ready to be a father? Fine, I wasn't ready, but I became one anyway and I did my best. That should count for something. Instead, you're treating me like I'm some kind of abuser when all I did was have normal doubts that any new parent would have. I called my mom, told her about the workplace incident and the letter. She went quiet for a long time. He came to my house 2 nights ago, she finally said. At midnight, banging on the door, the neighbors called the police because they thought someone was breaking in. What did he want? He wanted me to talk to you, to convince you to forgive him. When I said no, he started yelling about how I'd ruined his life, how if I'd just been more understanding when you were born none of this would have happened. The police made him leave, but they said if he comes back I should file a report. Are you going to? I don't know, he's still your father. I don't want to make things worse. Things are already worse. She sighed. I know. My brother called me this morning, said Dad had sent him a 10-page email overnight listing every sacrifice he ever made for us, every sports game he attended, every birthday present he bought, every college tuition payment, like he was tallying up a debt we owe him. He's losing it, my brother said. I think he genuinely believed if he just explained himself enough we'd forgive him and everything would go back to normal. Nothing about this was ever normal. I know, but he doesn't see it that way. He sees himself as the victim, like we're all ganging up on him for no reason. My aunt called an hour later, said Dad had called her crying, begging her to talk to my grandmother, said he can't afford to lose his inheritance because his girlfriend left him and he's barely making rent. He's not getting a cent, my aunt said. Mom already met with her lawyer, the will's been changed, but he keeps calling and leaving these rambling voicemails about how we're all betraying him. My grandmother sent me a text this afternoon. Your father came to my house. I didn't answer the door. He sat on my porch for 2 hours. My neighbor threatened to call the police if he didn't leave. He finally left, but he keeps calling. I've had to unplug my landline. I feel like I'm watching him unravel in real time, Like pulling that one thread with the day planner has caused his entire life to come apart and he doesn't know how to stop it. Part of me feels guilty, part of me wonders if I took it too far by telling everyone the truth, but then I remember what he wrote in those letters, that he felt nothing when he looked at me, that I was an obligation he didn't ask for. And I remember that I didn't create this situation, I just stopped pretending it didn't exist. My dad's car was parked outside my apartment when I got home from work 3 weeks ago. He wasn't in it, I checked. The car was empty, but the driver's side door was unlocked and there was a manila envelope on the passenger seat with my name on it. I took the envelope inside and called my mom. She told me to open it on speakerphone with her listening in case it was something threatening. I felt ridiculous doing it, but I did it anyway. Inside were copies of every letter he'd written to my grandfather, all 32 of them. He'd gone to my grandmother's house while she was at her book club and taken them from the shoebox. She'd called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. There was a note paperclip to the front written in his handwriting, "You wanted the truth, here's all of it. Every doubt I ever had, every moment I wasn't sure I could do it, but I stayed anyway, that has to mean something." At the bottom he'd written, "I'm sorry I wasn't the father you needed, but I was the father I was capable of being." My mom was quiet on the phone for a long time after I read it to her. "He's not coming back from this," she finally said. "He's burned every bridge he had." She was right. My uncle stopped by 2 days later and told me my dad had been fired from his job. Someone had sent his boss screenshots of the letters. My uncle swore it wasn't him, but someone in the family had done it. Dad's boss told him the company couldn't employ someone who'd publicly admitted to abandoning their newborn child for a golf trip. My grandmother changed her locks and told the police she didn't want him on her property. My aunt sent him a certified letter saying she'd get a restraining order if he contacted her again. My brother blocked him on everything and told his wife's family not to let him near their kids. I didn't hear from him directly for 2 weeks. Then last Monday my mom called me at 6 a.m. "Your father's in the hospital," she said. "He tried to kill himself." I got dressed and drove to the hospital in complete autopilot, didn't process what she'd said until I was already in the parking lot. His girlfriend found him, they'd gotten back together apparently. She went to his apartment to pick up some things she'd left and found him unconscious in the bathroom. Pills. She called 911 and they pumped his stomach. The doctors said he'd be fine physically. Psychiatrically was another story. They were keeping him on a 72-hour hold for evaluation. I didn't go inside. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for 40 minutes trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Relief that he was alive, guilt that my actions had pushed him to this, anger that he was making himself the victim again. I called my therapist, emergency session. She talked me through it for an hour, told me I wasn't responsible for his choices, that his mental health wasn't my burden to carry, that it was okay to feel conflicted. My brother went to see him, told me dad looked terrible, hadn't shaved in weeks, had lost at least 20 pounds, kept saying he didn't mean to actually die, he just wanted the pain to stop. He asked about you, my brother said, asked if you'd come see him. I told him I didn't know. I didn't go. I thought about it, spent 3 days thinking about it, but I didn't go. My grandmother went though. She told me about it last week, said she sat next to his hospital bed and he cried and apologized and begged her to forgive him. She held his hand and told him she forgave him, but she couldn't forget. That forgiveness didn't mean pretending it never happened. She told him he needed serious help, that the letters proved he'd been struggling with fatherhood from the beginning and he never dealt with it, just buried it and pretended and let it poison everything. He's in an outpatient program now, therapy 3 times a week, medication for depression. He's staying with his girlfriend in her apartment because he can't afford his own place anymore. My uncle heard he's working at a hardware store, minimum wage, nothing like the sales job he had before. My grandmother reinstated him in her will, not the full amount but enough that he won't be destitute when she dies. She told me she did it because she couldn't live with the guilt if he tried again and succeeded. I told her I understood, but I haven't changed my mind about him. My mom asked me last week if I'd ever consider talking to him again. I told her I don't know, maybe someday, maybe never. Right now I'm still processing the fact that my entire childhood was built on him pretending to want to be there. My brother has coffee with him once a month, says dad is genuinely trying, going to therapy, taking responsibility, not making excuses anymore, but my brother also said he'll never trust him the same way again, that something broke that can't be fixed. I got a letter from dad 2 days ago, mailed to my apartment. My hands shook when I opened it. It was short, 1 page. He wrote that he's in therapy and he's starting to understand how much damage he did, not just by missing my birth but by spending 28 years lying about it, by never dealing with his resentment and letting it seep into everything. He wrote, I can't undo any of it. I can't go back and be at the hospital when you were born. I can't rewrite those letters to my father. I can't take back the things I said when you confronted me. All I can do is own what I did and try to be better going forward. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to want me in your life. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry, really sorry, not sorry I got caught, sorry that I hurt you. He didn't ask me to respond, didn't ask me to call or visit, just said he was sorry and that was it. I showed the letter to my therapist. She asked me how it made me feel. Sad, I told her, because it was probably the most honest thing he'd ever said to me, and it came 30 years too late. I haven't responded to the letter. I don't know if I will. Part of me wants to believe he's changed, that therapy is helping, that maybe someday we could have some kind of relationship. But another part of me remembers what he wrote in those letters, that he felt nothing when he looked at me, that I was an obligation he didn't ask for. And I don't know if I can ever get past that. My mom told me yesterday that healing isn't linear, that it's okay to feel angry and sad and guilty all at the same time, that it's okay to not have answers yet. So that's where I am, no grand reconciliation, no dramatic confrontation, just me trying to figure out how to move forward knowing my father spent my entire childhood wishing I didn't exist. Some days I think I'll eventually forgive him, some days I think I never will. Both things can be true. You have reached the end of the text.